Welcome to the Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin podcast. We present cold case crimes that we feel can and should be solved with your help. We provide the facts of the case and the research that we have done. Then web sleuths like you help us solve the mystery and provide the victim, family, community, and law enforcement with justice and peace of mind. This is Solve Crimes.
Hey Rick.
Hey Gavin.
Dude, this is a really interesting case, this Denise Anderson case, and I think maybe we ought to start off with, how did we find the Denise Anderson case?
Well, yeah, I found her, I didn't find her, but I was the first to be notified about it, and then I passed it on to you, and you took it like a baton and ran around the track and passed me 3 times.
Well, I like to do research.
You're supposed to hand it off, man.
One of my hobbies is research. I love research.
Yes, and I do too, but I think you are definitely more proficient at it.
But tell everybody who's listening how this came into your radar.
Okay, so as with a ton of things that we're finding as we took on that Judy Akari case, we've discussed in previous episodes of that podcast and video series that it opened up doors to other investigations and other options and things that really, we've likened it to a rabbit hole, right? It just never
like
ends.
Donna Lass and Nancy Malik and Carol Beth Hilburn. They just kind of
serial killers and all those things. Yeah. So this is another part of that. Someone commented. There's a Facebook group that I'm in called Sacramento History, and I posted some things about Judy Akari in there because it made sense to me. And we've gotten great feedback there. But then a woman commented on one of the Judy Akari posts and said, "I really wish someone would look into my friend Denise Anderson's disappearance." And I chatted with her back and forth a little bit. She went to high school with Denise at Sacramento High, and I guess the woman, and I'm blanking on her name, the woman who posted that comment, I guess at the time that Denise disappeared, this woman was married and living in Texas. But her mom had called her and said, your friend Denise from high school disappeared. So she said that she's followed up on the case and she's looked around, and she said that no one did anything with it. And you and I were like, well, we'll look into that. And dang if she ain't right. Right? I mean, most of the stuff you found on her was about her acting career, not even about her disappearance.
It's actually been really, I think the saddest part about this whole thing is that Denise Anderson was very active in the community, and she was reported on a lot in the Sacramento Bee. Now, again, she went to Sacramento High, so that's right near downtown Sacramento. It's a little bit off to, the west, yeah, it's on the west side, but I think...
Get it right. It's very important in this podcast.
It doesn't matter. But anyway, it's a little bit outside of downtown, but it's close to downtown.
Right.
And so she's very active in her high school, especially in the drama department, the theater productions that they put on. And then as she graduated high school, she became very engaged in Sacramento's theater scene.
Right.
And then, poof, she's gone.
Yeah, and wasn't there was an article 5 days after she disappeared, and it was not about her disappearance. It was about her featured in a play. Yeah,
she was in a play at Center Players Theater, which is a theater that's still active in Sacramento.
Right.
She was in Maras Sod, which I don't know if there's irony in this, but Maras Sod is a play about inmates at an asylum putting on a play.
Oh boy.
It's kind of a weird thing, but she was cast in that. She went missing on April 13th, 1971. On April 18th, 1971, the Sacramento Bee in its
arts
arts and entertainment section said, hey,
Yeah.
Center Players is putting on Marasad, this Friday or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Right? But Denise was already gone. She had disappeared for 5 days. The next time that Sacramento Bee said anything about her was 17 months later.
So, as we get going on this channel and we go in these different directions that I don't think either of us expected, we're going to get into that whole psychology of what makes a case, I guess, find that tipping point, right, where it becomes public. It's in the public consciousness, I guess. Is that the best way to put it?
Yeah.
That people are talking about
People
it
are curious
and it's ongoing.
about it,
And a lot of times these cases are kept in the public eye because of the family.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Judy's case, her father was very, very vocal and was quoted multiple times. And now, naturally, her disappearance is different because they ended up finding her, and it was a horrific scene. So that was certainly more salacious than Denise just disappearing. But I think in today's investigative terms, Denise. I mean, when Judy was taken, it was clear that there was some type of violence, and she was taken.
Right.
Denise, while apparently, because we really don't know, apparently there wasn't any signs of violence. She just disappeared. So I think maybe the police back then just thought, she's how old was she at the time? 23, 20?
I think she was 22.
Okay, so at that age, they're probably, she just left. But you and I, the more we learn about her, I'm completely convinced that she did not leave on her own.
So let me set the scene for what happened here, okay?
Okay.
All right. Denise lived in Midtown Sacramento in an apartment that she shared with 2 other young women.
Yes.
She worked at Wells Fargo Bank,
mm-hmm.
and she acted in Sacramento's community theater. And she was like a resident actor at the Eaglet Theater, and she was in all sorts of productions.
I also heard, by the way, that lady that is the one that put Denise on our radar, she said that she worked at a record store at one point, too. I don't know if it was at that same time, like as a second job, or if it was before that, but there was a record store in Sacramento that she worked
I remember you saying that. Now, just to kind of, and I don't want to get too off track here, but Denise lived at 925 J Street, which is the corner of J and 16th Street.
Which is no longer an apartment.
It's no longer an apartment, but just up the road from that, up until just a couple of years ago, there was a record store called The Beat. And The Beat was, before it was The Beat, it was Tower Records. So it was Tower Records forever before it was The Beat.
Yeah, there was keep talking, I'll look it up.
So like a block away from where she lived would have been a Tower Records store. So, okay. Also,
it wasn't Tower Records. It was a different one, but
okay. All right. So anyway, on April 13th, 1971, Denise Anderson was seen by her roommate lying asleep in her bed. Her roommate had arranged to borrow her car that day, to borrow Denise's car that day. So she took the keys and she left early in the morning.
The Music Circus.
Oh, Music Circus isn't a record store. Music Circus is a theater. That's Sacramento Theater Company.
Oh. Well, then there you go.
Okay, so...
Now it all makes sense.
Yeah, and I acted at Music Circus when I was a kid.
Did you?
Yeah, I probably did 60 productions.
And yet you're still here.
I'm still here. Anyway, what was I saying? Okay, so 5:30 a.m., her roommate sees her and takes her keys and leaves. When she comes back that afternoon, about 2:30 in the afternoon, Denise is not there. But all of her stuff is there. Like,
Right.
the only thing that was not there of Denise's was a wig. Denise had long brown hair, and she would sometimes wear a wig so that she would have kind of a short hairstyle.
Which was kind of a typical thing to do then.
It was kind of a thing, yeah.
Yeah. Is there any mention to like her? Because I seem to remember, you and I have discussed about so many details. It's hard to keep it all track. But did you see read anything about whether or not her purse was there? Because I thought I saw that those belongings were still at the apartment.
They were all still there.
Okay.
everything. Let me see. I wrote this down.
And I had mentioned to you before that this woman who went to high school with Denise said that she recalled that someone had said one of her roommates had said that Denise had gone to the store and never returned. But we don't have concrete evidence of that.
I couldn't find any evidence of this.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult to find any evidence of anything in this case.
Right.
Because all that we know is that at 5:30 in the morning she was there. At 2:30 in the afternoon she was not there, nor was her wig. Everything else, her purse, her wallet, her everything.
And no trace, no bank activity. We did read that.
Yeah.
It was and she had worked that day. I don't know what time, but she did.
She was scheduled to work
and she didn't
at Wells
show
Fargo.
up.
She was scheduled to rehearse that night.
Okay. Yes, yeah. And did not show up. So it's just what a mystery.
So you're right. When Judy Hikari disappeared, there were the keys on the floorboard, the door ajar, the buttons in the back,
she was
strips
expected.
of towel. She was expected. Yeah, that whole thing.
The door was wide open. I mean, it was clear that there was some kind of a struggle.
All that. With Denise, she's just gone.
It's poof.
And if you live with roommates, it's not uncommon to just like, oh, well, Denise isn't here, right?
Yeah.
But she'll be back
you don't
tonight
keep track
after
of everybody
rehearsal
like
or
that.
whatever.
Right.
So.
Well, and I guess her roommate probably thought it was a little odd since she had worked that day and her roommate had borrowed her car. So I guess she expected that Denise would be there at some point to take her car and go to work and then eventually the theater. But and this is a good place to point this out. We're not just presenting these things, not just as homage to some of these individuals who are, I mean, like the title says, who are gone and have been forgotten by the whole community, right? Certainly the press and that kind of a thing. And so Denise, her disappearance, we're not just talking about her just to pay homage to her. We do, if we can solve this case, this is a tough one because there's virtually no evidence. And this woman who went to school with her told me that it was really sad that her mom ended up passing away, never knowing what happened to her daughter. So there's so many of these cases that we're coming across, and it's going to send us wherever it's going to send us, right? But if there's anyone who knows, like someone who knew Denise back then, it would be amazing if we could talk to her roommates. That would be incredible because I'm sure we'd get a lot more info from that.
Yeah, because we don't have access to like the police report.
No.
All that we've been able to see, and she's not listed anywhere Judith Ann Hikari was listed on the Sacramento Sheriff's cold case page.
Right.
Sacramento Sheriff's has a missing persons department, but they don't have like a list of missing persons on their page
publicly.
And I bet that missing persons list would be
probably
big,
super long. Yeah.
Super, super long. But
she's on other missing persons case pages.
She's on the Charlie Project. I saw her there. Mm-hmm. I saw her on the Jane Doe or the Doe Project. Okay. I saw her there. I saw her on, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like the Name Us or Name US or something. It's a federal registry that you can search.
Yeah.
But all of them just have about 2 sentences of like, Denise Anderson was last seen on April 13th, 1971.
Yeah, and that is kind of something that we've had felt some satisfaction that we've come up with a little more than that, right? Just from doing our own little research. And I think if we can talk to people who were around, and I realize that they're going to be a lot older, but those 2 roommates, if they're still around, and I mean around like if they're still alive.
If they were her age, then they would be in their early 70s right now.
This is the type of event that when it happens, it's not like they've forgotten her. That was a pretty big event. If you have a roommate disappear,
oh my goodness.
So I'm sure that the recall would be there. So it'd be wonderful to be able to talk to them, and maybe one of them may say, drop a name. Well, she was dating so and so, or she told me that this guy was bothering her. I don't know.
That we could then research.
It would be great to get a little more info out there.
So. The next time she was in the paper after that April 18th, 1971, she was in the paper 17 months later in 1973.
And that was referencing a reward, right?
It was referencing a reward. I'm going to open it up real quick in front of me. So it looks like it was the 6th of September, and the Sacramento Bee had this thing called Secret Witness. Now, Secret Witness came to be because Sacramento was experiencing a rash of weird crimes. And there was a newspaper in Detroit who had success in creating a reward fund.
Right.
And the Sacramento Bee talked to them, and they decided that they would create the same kind of program called Secret Witness. And as there were just these weird things that happened, missing persons or murders, or sometimes they would post rewards for fugitives, things like that. They would post them in the newspaper. But most of the time, and this is a criticism that I realize is now, 50 years after the fact. So, they were doing the best that they could at the time. But
Yeah.
Really, every time I would read those early Secret Witness postings, it was more about how great the Sacramento Bee was. Hey, look at us. We now have $130,000 in our Secret Witness account for these rewards. And hey, the next week come out, it's now $138,000. And it just drove me nuts because, like in Judy Hikari's case, she was one of the original ones that, that was like one of the original rewards. And what was it, like $2,500 for a reward for Judy Hikari?
Something like that. Yeah.
As the weeks passed, Judy Hikari's case went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the story until finally it was completely gone.
Right.
And so when Denise Anderson's was added to Secret Witness, they wrote 4 paragraphs, 139 words, along with a reward for $1,000. And that was it.
Yeah. Which is about, we looked it up, it's about roughly $6,000.
About $6,000.
In today's money. Yeah.
And Rick, I have to ask myself, like, is $1,000 really going to give somebody an incentive to say, I know where she is?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean.
Yeah. I don't know. It's getting to the point where I'm almost thinking that we, at some point, might start our own fund for, with maybe get some sponsors to help pitch in to try to encourage some movement on some of these cases, even if it's just re-interviewing people, because that does work with cold cases, because if they felt pressure not to say something in that moment, that pressure goes away when they're no longer around the people that they didn't, that they were hanging around with then and maybe felt pressure and wouldn't want to be seen as a snitch or something like that.
Right.
So that does work, and maybe we can drum some stuff up like that and try to encourage some people to come out and, at the very least, interview with us and see if we can get some more information on any of the cases that we're featuring.
Yeah, I like that idea, and I definitely want to do something like that. And as you know, I have a pretty awesome track record in crowdfunding. I think that maybe we could use that
skill.
Yeah. To
maybe
create some leverage to build something big, but we'd have to build something where we have real leverage, right? We're not just saying, hey, $2,500 or $1,000.
Yeah. Amazon card.
Yeah, we don't want to do that, but
well, and getting back to Denise, I mean that is, and we are going to, I think I even mentioned this earlier, that we're eventually we're going to do an episode kind of diving into the whole reason why some cases get picked up and people talk about them, and some cases don't, like Denise. And but for us, I mean, yes, she was a beautiful girl. That's not the only reason why it was interesting to us, but it definitely.
Well, that's actually, Rick. What? I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's the thing that is actually a mystery to me. It's always the beautiful girls that people care about.
I know.
And
this one,
in
they
this
weren't.
case, they weren't.
Right. No, I agree with you. I mean, it's and you do have that nostalgic, like you look at that picture and you're like, God, she had everything in front of her, and look, she was an actress, and she was beautiful, and she was young, and she was actually doing it. She wasn't talking about acting; she was actually doing it, and I'm sure she had aspirations to for her career, as she got older, and then just poof, gone. And it seemed like no one other than I'm sure her roommates and her family cared about it.
Well, and let me talk a little bit about the Sacramento theater scene, because this actually has this is important to the case, I think.
Okay.
Sacramento in the 70s was still a little cow town. However, on the West Coast, Sacramento was and continues to be the very best place to springboard into Broadway. So if you want, if you're on the West Coast and you want to be a theater actor, there's one place that you absolutely must go, and that is Sacramento. Now, there is, there's the La Jolla Playhouse down in San Diego that is pretty darn good, but usually people in Southern California use the La Jolla to springboard themselves up to Music Circus, and then they use Music Circus to springboard themselves off to Broadway. And the reason that is because Music Circus is so difficult, not only to get in, I mean, it's difficult to get in, but it's just very difficult because they put on 7 or 8 shows in a summer in a theater in the round. So basically, if you're a resident actor, like many of us were when we were little kids at Music Circus, you are not only performing every night a show that, you're not, it's a musical, right? So you might be doing Big River or something like that at night, but during the day, you're rehearsing for the next week's show. So you have to be super professional and super driven and super everything theater in order to succeed at Music Circus, in order for you to get, out to Broadway, which is the ultimate goal, right? So the fact that, and the Eaglet Theater is what eventually became Sacramento Theater Company, which is what Music Circus is, right? So, and it's a little bit more complex than that, but when you get down to the nuts and bolts, dang it, sorry about that, Rick. I had notifications.
Well, and now, because I did not know that, and even now, I mean, it makes sense. We had talked earlier about Timothy Busfield, the actor from 30-something and
Sacramento native.
Yeah, Sacramento native and West Wing.
Yeah.
What was the other one you mentioned? The movie he was in?
Field of Dreams.
Oh, Field of Dreams. That's right. Dude. So he and his brother opened a theater called the Sophia. SOFIA here in Sacramento within the last couple of years. So it's the scene is apparently still growing.
Oh, dude, Sacramento is that kind of scene, and I know about it just in that my parents were patrons of that, right? So I grew up around that. But I guess my point on all this is that Denise Anderson was not just a community theater aspiring actress. She was on her way. She was doing everything right, and she was on her way.
Well, she was clearly the articles that you dug up and that mentioned her. It seemed like she was in the top 3 roles of each of the things that I saw.
Yes, and you can watch her go from Sacramento High to American River College to Sacramento State College at the time, which now it's now Sacramento State University, right? To the Eaglet, to Center Players. I mean, she was doing good work, and she was on her way. She was obviously a very good actress. And
so it's kind of, I mean, I think where you're getting to, and I can hear it in your voice, is the exasperation that we're kind of baffled that there wasn't more said about her just disappearing.
Yeah. Now, if we go back to the Judy Hikari case, I think maybe like Bill and Evelyn Hikari were just maybe a little more tied into the community, and so they had a little bit more of a bully pulpit to get attention. Then her mom, Denise's mom, her name was Helen Anderson.
Maybe and we don't know much about her, right?
All I know is her name at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know anything about her father or if she had siblings or.
Yeah, I would love to find out all of those details.
Right. Yeah, we definitely want to get more info, and I'll say it again that anybody who has any info, even if you just know a person who might know a person, definitely get in touch with us. We have an active forum on each of the cases that we cover, which is this is one of them. So there is a Denise Anderson forum on our website. It doesn't cost anything. You can be anonymous, just to create a login and go into her forum, which is on her, attached to her case page on our site, and you can post things in there. We have a link to send us direct messages on there. So definitely want to encourage people. Even if you just recall something that we haven't discussed here, it'd be great to get some more information out there.
So let me go back and get a fact straight. So she was 23 years old when she disappeared.
Yeah.
Let me just read this. The mysterious, unexplained disappearance nearly 2.5 years ago of Denise Kathleen Anderson, an attractive 23-year-old aspiring actress and bank employee, was added to the Bee's secret witness list today. And then it goes through, this whole thing just angers me because out of the 7 or 8 paragraphs in this article, most of it is just how great the Sacramento Secret Witness Fund is.
And that has I did some research on that. The Secret Witness is no longer a program because I think now there's the National Crime Stopper thing, right?
Yeah, so it was folded up into that, I guess.
Right. But yeah, it is. I mean, not to mention, am I right in saying that right there that you just read is more than they wrote when she disappeared?
They didn't write a single word when she disappeared. Not a single word. And it just
we haven't even seen reference to investigators and what they found. Nothing. I mean, it's just it's craziness.
And
there are more out there, I think. More disappearances like this that.
So I did a quick search on that NamUs search, whatever. I know that I'm mispronouncing
just call it NamUs.
Whatever it is. And I did a search. It was like, okay, let's look at 1968 to 1975. And I just chose 75 because that was the year I was born, right? So 68 to 75, girls 5'2" to 5'4", 110 to 120 pounds of brown hair in the state of California. And it was 60 girls missing.
Jeez. Man.
So.
And we mentioned in the video companion to this episode, we mentioned that I think Donna Lass would have gone down the same, anonymous, no frills path that Denise and her case went. But 6 months after her disappearance, there's a postcard with the Zodiac Killer and a picture of South Lake Tahoe, and it just exploded. And now, we've had people reach out to us who are, Zodiac Killer is like a phenomenon all by itself. People are fascinated with that guy.
And that guy's 15 minutes of fame has now lasted 50 plus years.
And it's not slowing down. And this guy reached out to us through our website, who is in the UK. Dude's in England and runs a Zodiac Killer forum, where people go in. And so he reached out because he had looked a little bit into Judy Akari, and he actually thanked us he said, I'm really happy that you guys are looking into this case. And he had done research on Donna Lass and all that stuff. So had Donna Lass not been connected with the Zodiac Killer, we may be doing an episode like this, where gone and forgotten.
Yeah. Rick, why don't we talk briefly about maybe some of the people that could be listed as suspects? Like maybe we should start from this. Was Denise Anderson taken, or did she just walk away? What do you think?
I think you and I have discussed this. It with everything you've said about her, with she's an employee at a bank. She's an aspiring actress, and just as well as anyone that being in a theater group, that's not just I do that on the side. You commit
that's commitment.
Yeah, every waking moment outside of work, you're working on it. And she had major roles. It wasn't like she was standing in the back holding a palm tree, right?
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make any sense that she would split. And the very little evidence that we do know about, we do know that everything in her possession, her car, her purse, her clothing, all of her belongings, other than that short wig, she left behind.
They're all gone. And there were
no activity on her bank account. She had money in her
touched.
bank.
Yep.
So yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
A Okay, so I think you and I are on the same page. I think that Denise Anderson was definitely taken.
Right.
We've
There's
already
just
mentioned,
not a big trail of evidence like with Judy.
right.
Judy had evidence that there was a struggle. There's zero evidence with Denise. And it could very well be that she walked to the store and encountered someone on the way there or on the way back, and just a horrible timing on her.
Yeah, because there was no evidence of a struggle or anything
Right.
like that in
Right.
the apartment. So I think if we start at like the Zodiac Killer, the Zodiac Killer appears to be somebody who he was a taunter, right? He wanted
Yes.
people to know.
Right.
So in the case of Denise
so-
Anderson, she just disappeared and nobody ever claimed any responsibility or anything like that.
Right,
I
right.
think that we can just say, no, this is not a Zodiac Killer
No, it doesn't seem to be.
victim, right?
We also feel that way about Donna Lass, by the way.
I feel that way about Donna Lass for sure.
Yeah.
So what about D'Angelo, the Golden State Killer? That's what everybody always asks. Well,
I know.
anytime I'm talking to somebody about what it is that we're working on, they're like, okay, was it the Golden State Killer? Was it the East Area Rapist? It's the Night
Yeah.
Stalker, all that stuff.
Well, I mean, we've made reference to him so many times, and we did find out that yes, at that time he was in Sacramento, and he was going to Sac State, ironically for law enforcement. So he was definitely. I mean, again, the time period. There wasn't a lot when it came to forensics. So really, for him, and this proved to be, he almost got away with all of it. Came very close to getting away with all of it.
Close.
Yeah,
Even with
so-
all the evidence that he left behind, he came very
Yes.
close.
Yes. So he was very well versed in obviously police procedures, and he would do things to mislead people by saying, whatever you do, don't tell the police about my van out front. And he didn't have a van. Just trying to mislead. Have them looking for things that always wear a mask, all that kind of stuff. So
And in 1971, as far as we can tell, he was not murdering yet, right?
Well, it's a very common thing in psychology, looking back at criminal psychology, forensic psychology, that a lot of these guys start out kind of dipping their toe in the water of criminal acts, and and then they eventually get more bold and more confident, and they create their own pattern. And he definitely fits that, as far as, I mean, he started out as a peeping Tom, and then eventually would go into people's houses and ransack and take things. And so in Visalia, in the lower Central Valley near Fresno, the name they gave him was the Visalia Ransacker. And of course, he was an Exeter police officer, which I guess covers Visalia. And the irony there is that when the ransacker would hit someone's home, his job was to go to the scene of his own crime, evaluate it, and determine for the department whether or not it was something they should investigate. Can you believe that? I mean, but the whole point is, we will get into that later, but the whole point is that he escalated. So then he moved back to Sacramento and started raping and assaulting women, at first just when they were home by themselves. And then I think someone taunted him through the press. That's what everybody believes. And said he won't do it if your boyfriend or husband are home. And then he started doing that. And then eventually left the area and was somewhere in the South Santa Barbara area. And he had a mishap where the husband was actually awake and saw him and charged him when he walked into the room. And so he shot him and then ended up shooting the wife. And that began him killing people, not just raping. And so the point is that at that time, 70, 71, I don't know if he would have gone to, kidnapping a woman like that. But we don't know.
Yeah, I highly
Certainly
doubt it.
could.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible, though.
Okay, the one that I want to talk about, and I think that you and I will dedicate an entire episode
Probably.
to this one person eventually, is a guy named Roger Kibbe.
Yes, creepy guy.
He's 81 now. He's in prison. And
Ironically, down in that Visalia, he's
Right.
not too far from there.
Yeah, and well, what prison is he in? Do you know?
Coalinga.
Oh, he's in Coalinga.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, the psychology. Well, so, and he was known as the I-5 Strangler, which I
Yes.
know bugs you.
It
that
bugs
name.
me.
and why? Tell the people why.
Well, we'll talk about this when we get into it, but in another episode. But listen, Let's go back to D'Angelo,
Okay.
the East Area rapist and the original Night Stalker, right? People would call him Earons, and it wasn't until Michelle McNamara and other web
Well,
sleuths.
and let me explain if people don't know. Earons is EAR is East Area Rapist, and ONS is Original Night Stalker, which is what he was known as in Southern California. So when they put those two together, they called him Earons, and I'm sorry, there's just nothing interesting
So
about
Michelle
who even remembers it.
McNamara started calling him the Golden State Killer, and that got people interested. Like, oh, holy crap, we've got a statewide guy, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Rick, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum. The marketing of a serial killer, not for the purpose of glorifying what he or she is doing, but for the purpose of getting people's attention, is super important, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Roger Kibbe was known as the I-5 Strangler because most of his known victims were
And that's a key word, known.
yes, were he picked them up along Interstate 5, which is a highway. It's a freeway that goes north to south, border to border, right? So it starts up in Washington, ends.
So it's not even specific to an area when you call them that.
Correct, right? But most of his known victims are in the Sacramento area, Modesto, that kind of northern Central Valley. So what pisses me off about him being called the I-5 Strangler is that it doesn't, it's not marketable. It's not going to get people.
I mean, it certainly was enough to get press, though.
He got press.
You know what I mean? Yeah, he got. I mean, that's why he had that name. I mean, someone named him. I don't know who it was, but
we're all these many years later, and has he copped to like 7 victims, something like that?
It's something small.
It's small.
It's a small. I watched an interview. He did a plea to with the prosecutors to get the death penalty off the table if he agreed to do I'm doing finger quotes in the air, an honest, open interview with a forensic psychologist from prison, and he did. And I watched the episode, and it was very interesting. But I mean, he's a serial killer. He's a guy who his whole life was spent evading police. He's not going to cop to things. The guy asked him because his first, again, known case was 1975, and when he asks him, I was on the edge of my seat. He asks him, "Is that your first one?" And he oh yeah, that was the first one. Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, I just don't. Yeah, I mean, why would he cop to anything else?
Right.
But he was a sneaky dude. A lot of these serial killers are opportunistic. They're driving, hunting, right? And they see someone who's, in a vulnerable situation or in an area where they feel that they can take them and not get caught. His first kill in 1975 was down in actually I think it was Walnut Creek. You said Walnut Grove. I think it's Walnut Creek.
I think
so
it is
in
Walnut
the
Creek.
East Bay, east of San Francisco. So the story on that is really creepy. This guy called up a secretary school in Walnut Creek and he said that he had a company and that he was interviewing for secretaries, and they sent him his victim. I don't know if you knew that. So he actually, and here's the scary part. He interviewed her once in his van, of course. I mean, I don't know why that didn't raise alarm bells for her.
What?
Interviewed her once and said, "I want to do another interview." So he let her go and then picked her up again. And that's when he took her.
So
he had lengthy contact with her. It wasn't like he just grabbed her off the street. They sent her to him.
now, her name was Llewellyn Burley, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I don't have her.
So
in front of me.
Llewellyn Burley, as his first known victim, was killed in September of '77, I think. It might be 75.
For some reason, 75 sticks in my head, but yeah, you might be right.
But
it might
okay.
be 77.
So her body was not found until 2011, and it was because he led.
It was part
them
of his plea
there.
bargain. Yeah,
So-
it was part of his plea bargain.
That's why he's kind of on my list. It's like
I know.
he knows how to hide bodies.
Well, and I mean, and we, I looked into it. I discovered him because one night I couldn't sleep thinking about the Judy Akari case, and I looked up other serial killers that were in that area, and I found him. And I mean, he was definitely. I mean, he ended up getting caught because of a case in Sacramento.
How did
You know
he
what I
get
mean?
caught?
It wasn't down in the Bay Area.
What was it?
87. It was a 17-year-old girl he had picked up, and he abducted her and took her, and this is where it gets creepier, to South Lake Tahoe, where he had pre-dug a grave. This was not a spur of the moment thing. He had driven there first, dug a grave. He admitted all this, then went back to Sacramento looking for the victim that was going to be put in that grave. So we're dealing with, which made me think of Judy Akari, because who knows, he could have pre-dug the grave in Weimar, right? And so that's what got me on looking into Kibbe. And then I started doing research, and I mean, in 1970, the guy was 30, 31. So it wasn't like he was some young kid or that wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, in 1971, he would have been 31 years old. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's prime.
Actually, it would have been 32 because he's 81 now.
Okay, yeah. So,
whatever, but around that age.
I mean, that's prime. That's the prime age, I think. Mm-hmm. Like,
yeah, he didn't start killing when he was in his 40s. Come on.
No, come on.
No, we just don't see that. Or late 30s. I mean, that's not. I mean, there's all kinds of research on like Dahmer started killing animals, and a lot of these guys do that because they're testing. They have that urge to end a life and watch it and that kind of thing. So a lot of these guys start out by killing and torturing animals, and but I just don't buy that he just woke up one day in his late 30s,
he's 38
early 40s.
years old, and is like, you know what, I'm going to interview a secretary.
I just don't buy that. Yeah,
twice, and then I'm going to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was that was calculating.
Well,
So we're not really sure as far, going back to Denise Anderson, we're not sure. Could it have been him? Absolutely.
But
without a body.
You and I have said together, off the air, that probably the best serial killers have never been caught.
That you don't know who they are. Right. Oh, there's no doubt. That's not even a question.
Yeah.
If you want to say the best, meaning the most prepared, the ones that leave no evidence, the ones that have no ties to the murders that they've done, you would never know.
Yeah.
But that also goes to say that it could be someone who has been caught, just not caught for those, and that's where we're looking at Kibbe.
Yeah.
It's a man. This is the kind of stuff that keeps you up at night.
That's really interesting that he went to South Lake Tahoe to dig that grave, because
I know
Donna Lass
was
abducted from South Lake Tahoe.
That's right.
Never found.
I know. You see you see, and there's another killer that just kind of came up, but and again, like the Golden State Killer, he came up through DNA tracing, through and this guy, he was not around as far as we know during this time, so we're not connecting him to Denise Anderson or Donna Lass or Judy Akari, but there was a guy in South Lake Tahoe, I can't remember his name right now, but he was a real estate broker, and he was very well known in the community, upstanding guy, looked very normal. The pictures I've seen, he was very personable and had a great personality and all those things, and died of, I believe, cancer, like in 2010, 2015, not that long ago, and they had DNA from a couple of murdered girls in the South Lake Tahoe area, but they had no one to put it by. This guy was not in the system, so they ran it through the genealogy database that they did with the Golden State Killer, I believe the same one, and they found a third cousin or something. So they went to them and they freely, gave their DNA. They gave information. They gave names of other relatives, and eventually they got to, I believe, one of this guy's sons, and they figured out through DNA that it was him. But as he was alive, no one knew. No one knew until he was long dead.
Yeah, his name was Joseph Holt.
Right.
And he was a successful real estate guy up in Lake Tahoe who...
which to me says that he can be out in the middle of the wilderness, and if he's pulled over and people ask him why he's out there, he's got a million excuses for it. I'm surveying. I'm looking at land to buy or sell or whatever.
But he's been tied to 2 women dead in South Lake Tahoe.
Young girls too, I believe.
Yeah, and they were
like in their teens.
Unsolved for 40 years. One for 41, one for 39.
See, and this is why why you and I decided to do these. Even though the Judy Akari case is 50 years old and Denise Anderson's getting there, there's still ways to connect these people. There's still ways, even if they're dead, that we can still solve these crimes. And I mean, yeah, the satisfaction is there. Sure, communities, I'm sure, would like to have these cases solved. Some of the family members aren't even alive anymore, but I'm sure some of the families of the victims would like to see these things solved and closed.
A good case in point of that, Rick, is that Denise Anderson's mother, Helen, has passed away, but her high school friend, or at least her classmate, still wants to know.
She came across us doing a case on Judy Akari, and it brought up her friend. And that's not the first one. We've had 3 or 4 that have contacted us about former childhood friends and cases that have gone cold. And Denise was interesting to us because we couldn't find anything. And it is very curious. It's a we don't know why. Maybe because there was no crime scene, there was no struggle that we know of. So they just kind of shrugged it off. We don't know what was going on in Sacramento at the time. There might have been other things going on that just it just didn't become a case that even got press. Like you said, they didn't even talk about her in the local newspaper until 2.5 years later, when there was all of a sudden a reward. 2.5 years later, it's just it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a sad story. I don't know how to wrap up this episode because we don't have like a little bow that we can tie on it.
No, there's no bow. But we're creating some momentum though. I mean, we're getting the stuff that we're featuring does jog people's memories. It gets the information out there. We're trying, I've been trying to work with the local press to get some of this stuff back in the paper, including Denise Anderson. So by us doing these videos, just doing them alone and our own research is jogging people's memories. We found out about Denise from a former classmate of hers who doesn't even live in the area anymore.
So I guess maybe the bow that we could tie on the end of this episode is, if you want to help us solve this case with so much evidence that is, it's lacking the evidence. Right. There's just no evidence. Go to our website and share it, and share this podcast. Tell people about it. Go to our YouTube channel, share that episode.
We are very accessible. We've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, we've got, we're all over, the web and YouTube channel and podcasts. I mean, you can anonymously tell us.
And let's see if we can find the roommates. Maybe that's
our goal. I don't even think we
have
their names, do we?
No, we don't have their names.
No, not even names.
Let's just see if we can find Denise Anderson's roommates, and maybe by talking to them, we can get more information on this case that is not publicly available.
And once we gather more stuff, we'll do a follow up on this case. So, that'd be great if they can help us out. And we're coming back with. The next couple episodes are going to be back to the Judy Akari case, correct?
Yeah, we've got a couple of things that we need to really dig into. And my brother-in-law Christian, if you're listening to this, Christian, right now, he's Gavin. When are you going to do some more?
I've heard that from many people. Yeah, people that surprised me, like he surprised you, right?
Yeah. So Christian, we're digging back.
Surprised that they actually, they've been following it and they want more. And to be honest with you, I think this wraps it up. We're not sure that Judy's case and Denise's case aren't connected.
Of course not.
They could be.
Well, we should
year.
mention this. They were a year apart. Right? Judy worked at Sutter Memorial, and Denise lived in Midtown. So to drive from Midtown at J and 16th to Sutter Memorial, maybe 8 minutes, 9 minutes away, something like that, which would make, Judy's home to Denise's home, somewhere around 20, 25 minutes away from one another.
I wouldn't even say that.
It depends on the stoplights, right? It's all surface streets.
Right. So they may be connected.
Which
is what brought Denise's name up in the first place.
Dude, they're both 5'2". They're both 120 pounds. They both are, brunettes with brown eyes.
In their 20s.
In their 20s. One of the questions...
they were only a year or two apart, right?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Yeah. Denise Anderson was 23 when she was taken, and Judy Hikari was 23 when she was murdered. Yeah. So they were roughly the same age.
It's still a big question mark, but it's very coincidental.
Well, and one of the questions, you saw this, that I sent to the Sacramento Sheriff's Office was, where did Judy Hikari bank?
Yeah.
And the answer that we've gotten back so far is, we can't really tell you very much.
Which, that's the worst thing they could say to us.
That sucks so bad.
We don't go away easily. But yeah, that is you brought that up, and that was a very, very good question if she banked at that Wells Fargo branch, boy.
Because there is a Wells Fargo branch that would be convenient to Sutter Memorial.
Right.
It's like on, I want to say that's like K and 29.
And this is back in the day where you had to go into your branch if you wanted to do something.
Yeah.
There's no ATMs that you can do after work. You have to go in.
Correct.
So who knows?
They probably had those little vacuum, things.
I remember those tubes. Yeah, we could be talking about a guy who was an employee of Wells Fargo. And maybe these girls are all connected to that. That's what we're doing this for, is to it's really the first and foremost thing is to give these cases a fresh set of eyes. We were not involved then, so we're looking at it at a different angle, and we really do hope. You mentioned it. We are in contact with the authorities on this and the people who are in charge of these cold cases, but we know that they're. You can't spend a lot of time. They've got current cases they're working on, and these are cold cases that have virtually so little evidence. It's tough. So we're just hoping that we can assist.
But wouldn't that just be strange? It would be awesome if there was just that little connection that somebody hadn't. We need to find those little intersections. We need to find those little intersections, and maybe that can be.
And again, the more we get this stuff out there, the more like Denise's roommate, former classmate, she had seen the Hikari post that I did, and she contacted us about Denise. That's how these cases are going to get solved, if they get solved at all. Is that it's going to be someone who comes across. Again, we mentioned this with the last episode of the Hikari case, that if someone comes across Denise Anderson's name in relation to, let's say, a creepy old uncle that they that passed away, it may jog their memory. But, I remember him saying something about her or going to her play. I don't know. You never know how this stuff gets done.
Well,
Okay, so we'll wrap it up, and we'll again, anybody has any information, please let us know.
Now there might be some questions.
Find those roommates.
Why are we doing so much stuff that is in Sacramento area? The cases that we take are mostly given to us, right?
I keep trying to wrap this up. And
I know. I'm sorry.
We just keep going. But, no, it's fine. Yeah, we'll talk about that too. The whole Sacramento,
Yeah, and we'll go to other places.
Killers.
If somebody listens to this podcast or watches the video and says, there's
we're not
something
stuck
that
on
might
Sacramento.
be connected to this in Carson City, Nevada, then we'll go to Carson City, Nevada. But so far,
we're going to follow every connection that we have until we're satisfied with these cases.
Yeah.
There's still so much more to talk about with Judy Hikari and I think Denise eventually.
Donna Lass,
and Nancy Benalik, Okay, Gavin.
All right,
we're going to take off. So we'll get this wrapped up now, and we'll come back with Judy Hikari case. New episodes coming soon.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin podcast. Please subscribe to stay up to date with the cases we feature. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin, for more details and visuals that we can't provide here. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. If you have information on this or any of the cases that we feature, or if you'd like to join the discussion in our case forums, please visit solvecrimeswithrickandgavin.com.